Hey everybody, I hope you had a good weekend. So this is where we're at. So we are, we're glued on here. I have yet to, you can see it from that angle, kind of trim around this part so it meets up with this and ends up, where's a good one? Here's one. So it ends up kind of looking like one piece. You trim the bottom of this part, which usually ends up kind of square or like this before you finish it. And it just ends up kind of just gelling it together and looking like one piece, if you want to say it that way. All right, so I had the fingerboard on to glue this so I can make sure it had the right angle to it. And this looks like it is a very light rosewood, which I enjoy using just because it's something different. It's still a hardwood, not as hard as like a black ebony wood, but it's something different, I was joking with somebody and kind of making the comparison. It's like, man, you don't need to have so many clothes, but it's just so nice to have options. So I found out that the last 3 violins that I actually sold all had rosewood stuff just because it appealed to people. It looks slightly different. So that's kind of what we're going to go for here. But you can see I took it off. And when I had it glued on here, I only had it glued on in just really lightly in 2 spots to that way it comes off fairly easy when I set it up. Final assembly stuff, I will, I'll glue it a little bit better. But you can see this part has this section on it as well. Sometimes these fingerboards will come with, this part is called the nut, and this will have 4 slots in here for the strings to go over, and every string instrument for the most part uses them, like guitars, banjos. They all have this raised portion, and that'll keep that string suspended above this, because if this is too low, you see it's a little higher than I'm gonna leave it. I'll be filing it down. But if this is too slow and that string starts vibrating, it's gonna buzz against this fingerboard. So that's kind of one of the things that you want to look out for. This week's task is fairly an easy one. This little piece right here, this is called a saddle. And that's going to be the answer to the one question that'll go along with this video, is what is that part called? You know what I mean? So that it's going to sit right back here, actually. So what this part I drilled out and put it together for. This is where it's called the end button. It's going to go in here, and then the tail piece that comes up this way is going to have 2. Say they're wired, they're like plastic kind of strand of string type thing that'll go around the end button. And it'll go right here up over this saddle. So think of it, it's like actually something that you ride on top of. So the first thing we do is I got this, and I try to get most of the shaping of this thing done before I move it on, because once it's on there, it's kind of hard to do. But so I'm going to measure this guy. I'm going to split it down the middle, and then I'm going to mark it on my saddle. I'm going to place it on here, and then with a pencil, I'll get a good outline, an idea of where this is going to sit. So let me mark this guy up, and I'll be right back, and I'll show you what it looks like before we start taking this out. And you can imagine this process of kind of coming down in here. I'll show you throughout the process, but it's going to be very similar to when I had to cut in a recess for this neck up here. So I'll be right back with you as soon as I measure this and mark it. All right, guys. All right, so here, let me get you a good angle, and so you can see what this saddle thing is. It's one of the most overlooked parts on these instruments, but it'll actually set up the angle at which your tailpiece is going to be attached. If this thing's really low, that tailpiece is going to come down. It's going to affect the geometry of this stuff. So it's not a symmetrical shape. I'll show you it this is the front of it right here. So this is the side that's going to be in the violin. When you turn it around to this back side, you can see I marked the halfway point. It's 42 millimeters wide, so it's sitting at 21 millimeters here, and that was my reference line to center it on the back. Let me try to get this. So there's the 2 main sides. You can see here, this is the front that's going to be sitting in there. And notice this is slightly angled, so it kind of, as the string tension pulls it in there, it kind of pulls itself down into the groove. But the back side, as you can see, it has a rounded side to it. So that's where they call it the tail gut, but the little string mechanism that attaches to our tailpiece is going to be sitting up here and nice gentle. If you had this harsh edge right here on the back side, that's going to cause a unwanted friction against that thing, or the tail gut piece. So that's why it's very important that you, when you shape these things, you keep this thing round, kind of helping that out. So what I did is, it's easy to see, because you can see where these two ribs come together here. So that's going to be my center line. And what I did is marked it on the center line, sat it up where it's going to sit, and then outlined where I'm going to take this out of. So I'll show you the next step as soon as I get it done. I'm going to start with one of my X-Acto saws. I use it for small things. I will start and I'll make a notch from here back, and then I'll go down here to the end, do that one. And then every millimeter or so I'm going to do the same thing. So then when I can get my chisel, it'll help me just knock all those little loose pieces out. And then I can start to get, you know, how deep do we need this? Start off fairly conservative, so when I put that in here, it's going to sit slightly too high, and then I'll slowly kind of sink it down in. So let me finish that part, and I'll be right back with you. So here we are. Mark this up there, put it up there, what you saw. And this is what I was talking about when I talk about my X-Acto knife. It's the, or X-Acto saw. This one actually came, because that's the brand name of it. And it has these interchangeable things. This loosens and it comes out. But you can see it's just super fine teeth. It cuts exceptionally well. So what I did is kind of what I was telling you before. I cut my, I sawed my first line back almost to the back line, because I noticed over the years is if you try to land directly on that line that goes across the back, you end up cutting through it. So it's kind of, a lot of this falls into the whole adage of measure twice, cut once. And that's the thing. And sometimes that's, I get in my own way with that because I'm, proficient with most of this stuff. And I'm really, I try to kind of put out a lot of projects. So sometimes it is a very much stop and smell the roses kind of thing. So that way you can make sure that you don't have to go back in and fix anything. The guy who taught me a lot of this stuff always had this funny quote he used to give me. He goes, "It's okay. Everything can be fixed." It doesn't mean you want to stick too strict to that ideal, because some things, even though it can be fixed, can't be fixed easily, or you get the gist anyway. So now, let me show you here, and where we're at here. So I did, the outside lines, and then I went all the way down here about every millimeter, and I stopped right before that pencil line right here on the back side. And then I took, and it's not an X-Acto knife, it's just, kind of one of these utility knife things. And then I traveled down here along that line. So I'm going to start at that line going out, basically just to push all this stuff off. And once they're clear, then I can try to work on a little pocket. But I'll go with, the easiest thing to do is to start with a real small chisel here. Yeah, it's the tinier one. I could start with a bigger one, but again, one of those, just take your time, make sure everything's done the right time, or the right way the first time. Gosh, it's too late, I can't even talk. That way you can do the best thing, your best to ensure that everything's a snug fit. I didn't have to kind of raise this line back to compensate for me going too far this way and all that kind of stuff. And it's hard to put the wood back on there. It's easy to take it off. So I err on the side of caution. I'll get these things off. Then I'll take this guy, kind of fit it in there, and slowly take away wood until this sits down in. You want these sides to kind of be flush here with that. And then sometimes you may have to round this out, because this isn't a completely flat edge here. So sometimes you just have to take off these backside edges. But this is the part that takes a little while here. So I'm going to get to work, and I'll see you guys in just a bit. All right, so we are making some progress here. So you guys can see here at the beginning of this channel right here. Now, show you, this guy doesn't really fit well. It doesn't sit all the way down. Looks like it's contacting over here. So this is kind of where we start from. So we're going to slowly just take stuff out until it sits down in here. And as soon as we get that in there, we're going to glue it. And then it's good to go from there. I am going to call it a night because it is really late now. So I will get working on this tomorrow or Wednesday, and I'll post another video, just an update showing you what it looks like when it is all sitting in there correct. So guys, have a wonderful week, and I will see you guys later.